Hey, what's up, y'all? It's Zach, otherwise known as Keystone 777, greater than Solomon 33. You know, whatever you want to call me, doesn't really matter. But it's good to see y'all. You know, I haven't shown my face yet, so yeah, what's up? You know, this video is for, well, anybody, but in response to Mr. Gary Wormsterdam on YouTube, he wanted to know what my Salvia Divinorum experience was like. So I'm making this video to do like a short trip report, I guess. Now, I don't do that kind of stuff anymore. This was back in like my early 20s. But yeah, I'll tell you how it went. So the first time that I did Salvia Divinorum, I was 21, 22, I believe. Like, it was around my birthday. And my mom had it in the freezer of all places. It was like extract, like 100x, I believe, 50x, something like that. I think I took the 100x, and it was like, you know, like a little, like a package, like a tight package like this, and it had a little zipper on it. And I was, my sneaky ass, you know, I was like, ooh, salvia, I've heard about that. I want to, which, just keep in mind, I've never done psychedelics before this, ever. Never tried psychedelics. The most I've done was smoke weed. Um, I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know anything about it at all. So I took just a little pinch. And I had this little pipe, one of those little cheap glass pipes from the gas station. I loaded it in there. And I went and I sat in the bathtub. I had a bathroom adjacent to my room. And I went and sat in the bathtub. And I was like, well, I've read experiences that people, you know, they pass out or they start drooling or, you know, I was like, oh, that ain't going to happen to me. You know, arrogance. Well, the first time I smoked it, I don't think I held it in long enough because nothing really happened. Well, not nothing, but I got up and I felt heavy. I felt like I had like a backpack on or something. Like I was just like slumped, you know, like just really slumped down. And uh, I remember my cat. I had this cat back then, Timmy, a Persian. He was walking around, you know, and I looked at him and I was like, "You know something, don't you?" You know, I was like, it's like weird, you know, like it like made me. It's so strange. It's like I could telepathically communicate with the cat, and like the cat knew I was high or something like that. It was very strange. And then I remember walking by, we had all these guitars on the wall. I remember the shadows of the guitars on the wall like flexing a little bit, you know. I was like, what the fuck? You know? Um, it was weird. I was like, well, that was a little weird, but I don't think I did it all the way. I don't think this is what people were talking about, you know. So, still the same night, you know, about 20 minutes later, I had got some more out of the freezer. So they were going on to work. I was there alone at the house, which was stupid, by the way. Don't ever, if you're gonna do salvia, don't ever do it alone, or at least have somebody nearby just in case shit goes sideways that can like help you. Call 911 or something in case you fall over, because I'm telling you, you don't want to do this shit alone. You know, I mean, if you, I mean, you know, you're an adult. If you feel like you can handle it, you've done it before or whatever, you've done other psychedelics, you know, I guess you'll be okay. But with salvia, it's a different beast. So I would really recommend not doing it alone. But anyway, I got some more of the 100x, did the same thing, sat in the bathtub, and I did a little bit more research after that first try. And I was like, okay, I got to hold it in. I got to hold it in for a long time. So it, you know, hold it in, hold it in, hold it in. And when I let the smoke out, I remember thinking distinctly, the first thought that I had was, oh, I'm dead. That's the first thing I thought, you know? I'm like, oh, wow, I'm dead. You know what I mean? I just died. I remember thinking as I was blowing the smoke out of my lungs, I was like, wow, you know, I think my soul just left my body. Like I thought that the smoke coming out of my lungs was the soul leaving my body. You know, I was like, wow, it's my soul. Because I could see the smoke coming out, you know, and it slowly transformed to like this tessellation, like this fractalized pattern, like I was blowing out digital matter. It's hard to explain. It's like, you know, in one of those sci-fi movies, like in oh, what's that one movie where they go inside the computer and they're racing on the bikes, you know, Tron. Yeah, it was like in Tron where it has like, you know, data. It's like I was blowing data out of my mouth, you know, is what it seemed like. And it was like tessellized and like square patterns. And then it was like my whole front view vision, like this was all happening within a span of like a second or two, but there was so much information going on. You know, there was like the smoke turning into the data. I thought I died, you know, because I got the sinking feeling immediately once it hit. I was like, wow, I fucked up. I just messed up bad. That was the first thing I thought whenever it happened. Like, I just messed up, you know. And so the like the digital smoke matter, it started to like twist, like somebody like grabbed like my point of view, like reality, my perception, and twisted it like a rag, like that, you know what I mean? And it like, and then it like pushed in, you know, like let's say reality is like a sheet at this point, my point of view. Somebody pushed the sheet in, twisted it, and then it went, you know, started to like shake back and forth, you know what I mean? And then I got this distinct feeling of being like sucked through a hole, like, you know what I mean? You know, and I went somewhere else. And the place that I went, you know, at this point, I didn't know who I was anymore. And the words fail. You know, the words fail to describe what I was feeling at that moment. But I think the closest thing to say was that it was like I was in the spirit world, you know, what I would think of as the spirit world. And then I remember distinctly like this sort of feeling of being mocked, you know, like just mocked and made fun of during this moment. Like somebody was watching me and they thought it was funny that this was happening to me, if that makes any sense, you know. So I'm in the wormhole, you know, and I remember like turning my head, you know, I could still feel my body a little bit at this point. I remember turning my head to the right like this, and I can make out the shape of like the sink, because I was in a bathtub. The sink was over here to the right against the wall. And I remember thinking like, you know, trying to attach to the sink, like, oh, it's like the last part of reality I have left. I'm trying to like attach to it. I'm trying to hold on for dear life, you know, like, oh God, like, you know, just think about the sink, the sink. Like, I swear that's how it was. I was like, I don't want to lose control. I don't want to die. So I was like, maybe if I think about the sink, it'll make me remember reality, you know? So what happened is that like I diverted my consciousness into the sink. You know what I mean? Like it got sucked into the sink, and suddenly I was the sink, you know? And when people say this on Salvia, you know, I'm sure you've heard trip reports, etc., where people are like, oh, I became a doorknob, I became a rug. It's not that like I was physically the sink or anything like that. It was like because I thought about the sink during that process, and it was the last thing that I thought about before I really took off. It's like suddenly all I could think about, it was like a loop in my head, you know, like looping. All I could see is the image of the sink and it contorting and twisting into different shapes and materials. And I remember thinking like, I am the sink. That was the thought I had. I didn't like feel like I was the sink. I didn't feel like it physically, but in my mind I was like, my thought process at the time was like, I died and my soul went into the sink. Does that make sense? Like I died, and then instead of like going up or down or wherever I would have gone, you know, I was going into the sink. I was inhabiting an inanimate object with my soul, you know. And because of that, it started a really fucking terrible trip. This happened. I don't know how long this went on for. I didn't check the time before or after. I remember it was about 2 a.m. And by the time I had checked the time, it was like 3:20, 3:30, But I remember just this loop going on, like it looped and looped and looped back on itself, back on itself, back on itself. And it just kept going on and on and on and on. And I was like, I got to get out of the sink. That's when the fucked up part happened, okay? That's when I must have gotten up out of the bathtub and I walked into the living room and I was standing in the living room. Because that's when I came to, that's where I was. I was standing in the living room. I remember distinctly, like, I gotta go, I gotta escape, I gotta escape, I gotta escape, And I was standing in the living room. I was trying to escape that kind of like cycling thought process of being a sink. And this whole time, I had no bodily like feeling of moving. I didn't feel like I had physically moved. I thought I was still in the same spot, with what thought process I had left. I do remember at that point, things went silent for a moment. And all I could see was like that same tessellating pattern that I had when I first blew the smoke out, with like that weird, like fractalized digital like pattern was what I could see. And thankfully I got out of that whole sink, thing, thankfully. And I know it sounds disjointed, but if you've ever taken it, you have to understand, like, it doesn't make logical sense, like the process of events. It's not like, oh, this happened, and this happened. It's like it's all jumbled up together, in my mind. So it's hard to make a sequence of events. I'm trying to patch together as best as I can. And so by the end of it, the end of the trip was really the most interesting. At that point, it felt like when I was in the living room, this is where I must have been at that point, every single soul that had ever died turned around and looked at me all of a sudden, like all at the same time. I felt like I was in hell, and that like Satan and all the demons were looking at me and saying, like, you don't belong here. That's just the feeling that I got. And that's, at that point, I was like, wow, I'm in hell, I'm in hell. But then, and this is the most interesting part to me, when I was coming out of the trip, I felt like somebody grabbed me by my shoulders and pulled me up, pulled me up like 1,000 miles, like flying through the air is what I felt like. I felt like somebody literally grabbed me up under my armpits and picked me up out of whatever place I was in. And slowly, it's like things started like melting back together into reality. It was like, you know what I mean? Like, and during that process of like that bending where everything was kind of like tessellating back into like its normal essence, I felt like I got picked up by something and then like launched into the air. And then like my soul was like underneath me and it was getting brought back into my body. Yeah. And that's why I became a Christian, because at that point I remember that last part vividly, and I'm convinced that some good force, I call it God, Jesus Christ, the universe, whatever you want to refer to it as, some good force picked me up and saved me. That's my thought process, at least. Like, of course it's a psychedelic substance, it's a chemical reaction, it's this and that and this and that, but on a spiritual level, I feel like God saved me in that moment from a bad place. And like I said, words really don't do it justice, but I just wanted to put this out just as sort of a answer to Gary's question about my trip report. Sorry I can't be more detailed. It's really hard to describe. I think that's the closest I can get to it, was that sequence of events. And like I said, I'm never going to do Salvia again. I don't recommend you do it, But I mean, if you are going to do it, please have somebody in the room, because the shit is bonkers, bananas times 100. Okay, my words don't do it justice. You know what I mean? All these sequence of events that I described, each of them felt like they lasted for 1,000 years. You know what I mean? Like, I thought I died, but really what died was my ego. You know, like, it let go of my body, and that's what happened in that moment, in my opinion. So yeah, that's it. Sorry if that wasn't as detailed, as it could have been. I did my best, but yeah, I appreciate y'all. Appreciate you, Gary. Hope that answers your question, man. Thanks for the videos and stuff. I hope you like it. Hope you like what I put out, and yeah, y'all have a good day. I appreciate you. Thank you.